Entrepreneurship is said to be the creation of economic values in ways that entails beyond minimal risk. And of course, you know how it is when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to taxation, and it's of course involving values that are found in businesses like inflation, when it comes to power, when it comes to taxation, government policies, and COVID-19, and also the high product and production. You're welcome to Insight today. I am Jumai Manson. I have a guest who will be throwing more insight on the challenges of entrepreneurs. He is a peace ambassador, a speaker for both local and international conferences, an entrepreneur, and also a youth empowerment coach. He owns a laundry, fashion house, poultry farm, and a lounge. He is Dayo Akinbunuade. Don't go anywhere. Insight today. We'll be back shortly. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Insight today on Global Television. And looking at entrepreneurship and, of course, all entrepreneurs and the challenges that business owners actually face at this time. You know, I mentioned earlier on in the introduction, and I said most business owners are going through a lot when it comes to inflation, you know, the high cost of living right now as we speak. Of course, we know about the fuel subsidy, removal of the fuel subsidy, the fluctuation when it comes to fuel price, and then the power outage when, you know, there are not enough power sources. Individuals can stay in their homes without light and to power up most of their business, the business in which they run. Of course, we know taxation, new government policies that come into play, and then COVID-19. You know, since the emergence of COVID-19, a lot of happenings has gone round. People have actually, their businesses have collapsed. Some are still struggling to stay afloat, the high cost of product and also production. And like I said, business owners are going through a lot when it comes to some of the challenges in which they face, some of the I'm not sure if I want to continue with my business anymore. As an entrepreneur, it's better I remain an entrepreneur than to go into the white-collar jobs people mention. And sometimes people just sit back and struggle it all when it comes to businesses. And like I said, I will be joined by Mr. Dayo Akinbunuade. He will be here. Of course, he is an entrepreneur, and he'll be throwing more light on the challenges. Let's know how he manages to stay afloat with different sources of income that he has. Many people will say it's better to become an entrepreneur than to work or to be under the umbrella of a white-collar job. But most people tend to differ in the essence of the economic situation that we also face, you know, in the economy. And of course, let's quickly go on the break and ensure Mr. Dayo Akinbunuade joins us, and we'll know he will throw in more insight on the program. Okay, you're welcome back to the program Insight today on Global Television. And I said today we will be looking at entrepreneurs and the challenges of business owners in this time. And my guest is, he is a peace ambassador. I mentioned earlier, he is a speaker for both local and international conferences, an entrepreneur, and also a youth empowerment coach. He owns a laundry fashion house, poultry farm, and a lounge. Of course, he is Dayo Akimbunuade. Hello, Mr. Dayo, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Jamin. Saying
Hi, how
good.
are you doing today? Good afternoon.
I'm doing very well. How are you too?
I'm fine. It's great to have you on the program Insight today.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Dayo, talking about entrepreneurs and the challenges of business owners, has it been for you? You own lots of things. I always say you're like a different man in a circle. When it comes to circus, you have a laundry, a fashion house, a poultry farm, a lounge, and of course, you are a peace ambassador. And, you know, a lot of things in these hard times. How do you manage to stay afloat?
I'll just say just share resilience and dedication. That's it basically. Because the truth of the matter is that the current reality or the situation in the world today or in Nigeria today is a very harsh one, very tough one. So you just have to be resilient. You have to tell yourself that you're not here to give up. You're not here to quit because there's a lot of downsides to this thing. Well, feeling alone, it's been crazy. It's been hard putting fuel on my to run most of my businesses. But I mean, the good thing is having multiple streams of incomes now, having more than one venture, always just finds a way to create a balance where one can help sail the other, basically. So in Nigeria of today, you find out that you really can't stay with one one venture or one business anymore. You have to just find a way to see that you stay afloat because I mean the naira is crashing, exchange rate is not smiling, oil is rising, insecurity left, right, and center. So everything is just hitting us, but we have to stay focused. We have to tell ourselves we can do this irrespective of all of the what we face in the country today, basically.
You know, Mr. Dyer, when you mention zillions, you have to stay focused and all of that. You know, you owning a laundry house is not easy when it comes to power. When you mention
Yeah.
fuel, you know, the amount we buy fuel now, it's really high. How have you managed to balance that up when it comes to the angle of power? You know, the poultry farm, you also need power to actually run it, don't
Yes,
you?
because the animals too, the birds need the lights to keep them warm because the weather is
Uh-huh.
cold right now, and then sometimes there's no power, so you need to definitely put on the gen of some, so that you can have power to keep them. Otherwise, they start to die. Once they're too cold, they start to die. So, one of my biggest expenditure right now in all my business ventures is just fuel consumption is that's the major right now. I'm spending three times more on fuel as I did in January and February. So in now I'm spending more on fueling to keep all these businesses afloat. And honestly, if I was doing just one business, I don't know how I probably would have survived because now, speaking from my own personal experience, is the fact that the little I make from maybe the sales of some birds in the poultry or from laundry, from making some, cleaning some clothes and all that, or from the fashion house, it just keeps going around in a circle because when you get the profit from here, you want to also put it in the other place to balance out things there while you wait for things to pick up at the other end. For instance, when I get day old chicks, I can't start to sell until they're at least 6 weeks. Some people want to pick from 2 weeks, some people want to pick from 4 weeks. But at 6 weeks, I can tell those that are picking at 2 weeks are those that are probably going to keep them for another 3, 4 weeks before they now resell, add their little profit on top of it. So for me, before the birds in the poultry mature for 6 weeks, when I start to sell and make money back, what I'm making from the laundry and the fashion house would help to sustain that. I can buy their feed, I can buy their drugs, I can buy everything. And when the poultry too starts to give me some good money, I can now in turn put it back into the laundry and start buying fuel, detergents, and all of that that we need to do. So it's for me, my business are all just interconnected. There is a way that being able to structure it, and that's because you see now I have more than one business. So think about someone who has just one business. How will he really survive in a time like this? It's because I tell you, people businesses are folding up on a daily basis, and if you check the record, you even see that international organizations are leaving the country as well because it's becoming too hard to do business in Nigeria. So you have to have that sheer strength, that resilience, that determination. And for me, I would say I'm lucky or I'm blessed, I'll use the right word, to have more than one business to help me survive. Otherwise, I don't know how I would have survived. But having all of these different entities and businesses have really, really been a blessing, a very huge blessing to me. And I've been able to sail through and scale through because one business always have a way of providing and making things available for the other business until when that one picks up too, and then it just keeps going around. And then yes, we sail through. Honestly, we do. I sail through.
All right, Mr. Dyer. So what you're saying is one of the challenges is if you have one source of income, which is one business, it is hard to actually survive in this economy
Will
as an
be
entrepreneur, right?
Yes, it will be really, really hard. So
Now, now,
I'm going.
no, no, go on, please.
So I'm just because I'm using myself now as a classic example, um, and because I've also seen a lot of businesses fold up. So if they had probably had something alongside to do with the business which folded up at the time it folded up, then I'm sure they probably would have been able to weather the storm one way or the other. So I'm also advocating that people should get into doing more than one stream of income, should get into um, finding other alternatives, other ways by which they can keep putting food on their table, just in case one is not bringing in as much. Because no matter what that one is bringing in, because prices of things have doubled, prices of fuel has tripled in some cases, it's definitely not going to be enough anymore. And you also stand at the risk of overpricing your goods and services at the detriment of losing your clients and and customers. So you also want to bring in this balance one way or the other. So the advice is people can find alternative and other source of income to, and one thing I also did was to find relating businesses. So if you do, for instance, you say I own a laundry and a fashion house. I started my fashion house after my laundry because I started to see nice clothes that were brought to the laundry. And I started to challenge myself that, wow, this is a really beautiful. I can only imagine how much this person would have paid to make these clothes. And I said to
Wow.
myself that you can start making clothes too and start making money from making clothes. So I went into that, and guess what? When I make clothes for people, that's after the fashion, the tailoring, and then they said, oh, they want to get this cloth loan because sometimes some people don't like to wear clothes after they have been sold for them. They like to wash it first before wearing it. I would
Yeah.
also tell them, oh, I own a laundry business, so I can as well do the laundry aspect for you right away, and I also get my money for that. So I'm also bringing my businesses to relate with each other, and it's like somebody who is selling flour now decides to go into bakery, or somebody who owns a bakery says is going to selling flour and sugar in bags and stuff. So find a way to relate so that your subordinate business is also getting its raw materials from one of the things that you're doing. So it's also a way to bring back the money to you and see that you're reducing pressure in different areas of your
All right, Mr.
business
Dai,
endeavor.
I want to ask a question. You know how it is when people say business is not forthcoming as is used to. Business owners are going through a lot. It hasn't been easy when it comes to production, when it comes to the product as it is. How has it been? Have you been able to retain your customers? Are there more, or have they dropped in numbers, or you've still retained more than you had before?
I'm gonna be truthful and in all honesty, I haven't had a better yesterday. Well, for me, it's always been a better tomorrow. I've had in my fashion house right now. It's a whole lot of pressure. In fact, as of last year, the pressure I'm at now to getting clothes produced is has doubled. So I would say I have been able to retain my clients and in fact doubled production. We've had to send clothes to as far as Australia this year and this period. It's been I'm currently working on one who's living for the UK. One of the clothes we're working on in the fashion house right now. We're sending that to the UK by the end of this week. Um, so we've been able to have customer retainership, and maybe because of our core values is excellence and perfectionism in my fashion house, and that has been our watchword. That has really helped us sail through and put us in a better position globally right now. I would say.
All right. So your cost of product that you make when it comes to clothing, when it comes to poultry, and I know you own a lounge, has it increased the price or tell us about the price range when it comes to the product? With this,
I
all of these,
I
like I said, I
couldn't.
mentioned, there's inflation, there's taxation, government policies around. Has it actually, how is the price when it comes to all of these that you are involved in?
I can't, because naturally things have increased in Nigeria. So there was no how I could leave prices at the same way it was before now.
Oh, yes.
So I had to add a percentage. So what I did was to add just 30% of production. So what I did before, if making a piece of garment was 6,000 naira, just saying, all I did was to add 30% of 6,000 naira. So now we're making that for about 8,000 or so. So that became, so for me, was reasonable. And yeah, I had to look at a margin to help me also retain my clients. You don't also want to put in something that because there are alternatives everywhere, and customers are the people who drives your businesses. So you want to see that these people keep coming. Well, for the poultry, on the other hand, there are other things you have to. Chicken feed is really, really expensive right now. Really, 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 really expensive. So when I do all of that, I have this big journal, this diary where I put in all my expenses. I do all of that. Then I divide it by my number of birds, and I'll know how much I've spent on each bird before I now begin to put my profit margin, and then I know I want to sell each of my birds. In
All
fact,
right.
sometimes people want to come that day, and I'll be like, no, I'm not selling yet. Because if I sell it too early, I stand at the risk of not getting my money back. Because then, okay, just wait a moment, maybe for the next 5, 6 weeks, then I can put good amount and put a margin of maybe 1,000, 2,000, or 1,500, so that I can just sell. And it feels reasonable. And to God be the glory, the clients are they still see our prices and our products and our services still very reasonable, and God's been faithful.
All right, Mr. Dyer, we're going to go on a quick break. And I'm going to ask you, when we come back, I want to give you something to ponder over. COVID-19, has it affected your business? Definitely, even if things are smooth sail, there should be challenges business owners are facing. Even if not you, you have friends who are business owners who go through one or two challenges. We're going to go on a quick break. And then when Insight Today returns, we'll be back with Mr. Dyer. Stay tuned. You are welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is Insight Today on Global Television, and we're looking at entrepreneurs and the challenges business owners face in today's world, in the economy that we find ourselves. And I am joined by Mr. Dayo Akimbunuade. Mr. Dayo, are you still there?
Yes, I am here.
All right, Mr. Dio. Now, looking at it, COVID-19 caused a lot of havoc when it came to businesses in Nigeria. A lot of people actually
Yeah.
shut down. Businesses were not running. Things
Months.
just went from up to down. Everything topsy-turvy, if I can use that word. COVID-19, did it affect your business or business owners that you came across with? Did it affect in any way?
COVID-19 affected my lounge. I have a sit-out lounge, and of course, when during the COVID, there was a sit-at-home order, and then people could not come out to the lounge to have their relaxations and all of that. So we're grounded. I laid off staff. And at the time, that was one of my biggest source of income as a person. So really, it affected me, and people didn't even go anywhere at the time. So it was even hard to do laundry at the time. It was hard to get people's clothes washed. So it really, really, really did affected me. But of course, after COVID, the lounge suffered a heavy blow. So it kind of felt like people had now begun to forget about the existence of certain, because we're shut down for roughly 7 months. I knew we went into shutdown from about, I think, March till say August or so. So that was about 5 or 6 months. And it was a lot. And then by the time lockdown was over, sometime in October, thereabout, it was so hard for customers to come back again. So we lost a whole lot of our clients at that time, because people started looking for alternatives that were maybe close by their houses and stuff like that. So I really, really faced a whole lot of challenge with COVID-19. But then again, you see, because I'm usually a very forward thinker and I will not want to settle for defeat, it was during the same COVID-19 I picked up the skill of fashion. I
Oh,
picked up the
wow.
skill of tailoring, picked up the skill of learning to sew. So while I was losing money in one end, I was developing myself by online classes, learning how to sew. And right after COVID-19, I put my machines together and set up my and the interesting thing was right after COVID-19, a lot of people wanted to get married. So I had to start producing almost immediately, I tell you. So while one part was going down, another one quickly came up for me. So COVID-19 is a curse and a blessing, I would say, because I lost my clients. In fact, at the point I did a total shutdown for the sit out lounge, and which I do not regret right now, because somehow the fashion house just picked up, and boom, 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 we started moving. You understand? So that's that I can say about COVID-19, and I don't think it's only me. I think it's many other businesses and and outfits out there faced the same setback and heavy blow due to COVID-19. It's a global effect, anyways, and this is my own story to the COVID-19 pandemic and how it really, really affected me and my business too.
All right, Mr. Dio, let me just divert your attention a bit. The government makes it look as if they're bringing out ideas to ease ways of doing business, in our country. Do you think that is the case? Is that what we see now? Is the government trying to make things easy, to douse it a bit? In your own point of view, what's your take on that?
I would say the government is not doing so much about that. You see, a lot still rests on the government of the day. A lot. And if government says she's doing a lot to help business owners thrive and survive, then it will be palpable. Then we would see that people are really doing well in this country. Then we would not have young people having it right at the forefront of their heads to want to get out of this country, the Jackpot syndrome. If the government is really, really doing things to help her citizens in Nigeria, nobody will be thinking of leaving this country. Everybody will be doing just fine. Because Nigerian people are not lazy people as people would
Very
believe.
true.
So, for me, we don't even have power supply, which is one of the major things I need to keep all of my businesses running. So I'm spending a lot of monies buying fuel in my generator. I'm spending a lot of monies paying for security, paying an extra guard man to watch over my premises when I'm not there at night, just so that all can be well, because government is not doing what they're supposed to do. So these and many others, I think, are reasons why I feel the government is not doing what she's supposed to be doing.
You know,
For me, I can't feel it. I can't feel
yes.
it, and I must be honest about that.
I'm going to talk about the Jackpot syndrome. Everyone wants to leave the country because they feel the government are not putting in place what they ought to. But, they give this impression that there is this empowerment somewhere, empowering this, empowering that. And at the long run, it gives the youth a sense of ease that they are in support of what they are doing when it comes to entrepreneurship. Now, when you mentioned security, how has security affected businesses? Before we look into the challenges of business owners, security for you. You mentioned you're paying money for your shop to be watched, your outlets to be watched. How has that affected your business as an entrepreneur, or generally, if you
Um,
can categorize?
Generally, I have a friend who's um who's a hairdresser, and then she has a generator. She has all her hairdressing machines and all that in a place of work. And one morning, she got to our store, to our place of work, and opened it and discovered that her shop has been broken through from behind. They broke through the fence, not even the gates or the burglaries and the doors. They broke through the fence of her shop right behind, picked her generator and a few other things in her shop. And it's been a hard time for her trying to get back on her feet, trying to get another generator, trying to survive again. Now, these are all part of, imagine this young lady trying to survive and trying to, earn decent livelihood with hard-earned money. And because of lack of security, which in itself is because of lack of one thing or the other, the government did not provide for certain young persons, which now makes them go into armed robberies, kidnappings, lootings and stealings and all of that. So you see, everything is still all part of the government's problem, and that's why security, if security can be tackled amongst many of the issues in this country, I tell you, maybe we may just begin to have the headway. Maybe this country may just begin to have a different narrative altogether. But until then, it's still very hard. It's still a gloom. It's still a very, very dark reality for us in Nigeria. So yes, security is tough. A lot of times, we have to pay. I remember one of the times at the lounge, I'd barely driven out of my lounge about 15 minutes later, and then some boys or some people came in masks and weapons and all of that.
Oh,
And they
wow.
attacked my workers and made away with some of our monies and our sales for that day, because we were just rounding up, we're just closing at the time. And I was lucky to have just left there, and about an hour later, I was called by my workers that this is what had just happened. In fact, one of my workers was used, a machete was used to tear his
Oh,
head
wow.
open. I'm telling you. So it was really a very traumatizing effect for me and my workers too, because the following day they were all too scared to want to come to work. So security is a major threat to businesses and what we do. So I had to pay monies for extra vigilante people to be around my facility and my premises, every night, just so that we can continue. And now all the monies we're making, we're spending back on security, we're spending it back on fueling, we're spending back on buying raw materials and all the things we want to put back into the business. So it leaves us with very little to take home at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah. I
It's
completely
a whole lot
understand,
of.
Dio. I completely understand, and sorry about that. What happened to your employees? Now, looking at it, some people say with all of this stress that is happening when it comes to inflation, taxation, power, all of these issues that we have in the economy, people just say it's better to just work online. It's easier, it's cheaper, there's no
Less
point.
risky.
That it's better to work online than to work in an office, or it's better to just work from home. How true is that? Someone who has been
You,
top seed when it comes to businesses ups and I've seen the ups and the highs, the lows when it comes to business. It's just better to work online and just work at home than to be an entrepreneur and run that business of your dream. How true is that?
um, for all the businesses that I run, it's almost, you see, very difficult to name it a work from home. And people have to wear clothes, people have to eat chicken, people have to get their clothes washed one way or the other, people have to want to sit out and relax for a while, people have to want to get their houses and their offices washed because I clean houses too. Um, so I think that my sector, my business sector may not really be something you want to call a work from home, but I know people in the tech world, people in some financial institution or some sort can do a work from home. People that all they need to do is to write reports, forward it to their bosses, and all that. So yes, and that was our reality from COVID-19. The work from home thing became a post-COVID or during from COVID all the way to post-COVID, the world now understood that we can work from home. So and people have become so productive even while working from home, and it has become less risky. Imagine someone going to his office, having an accident, and dying on the road. He doesn't have to go to his office anymore, and or imagine someone coming back from his office at night and he's robbed at the junction of his house, as the case may be. So it's less risky, it's better. And if there are organizations that can really employ people to work from home or work by proxy, I think it will still be an advantage. I think it's still going to help solve a lot of problems because people now don't have to buy fuel for their cars, don't have to pay all the exorbitant amount for transportation and all of that, and all the stress of just getting to work. I mean, just live an easy life, work from home. If it's doable, yes, I would support that. But I really don't have a business that is structured to working from home because how do I take the measurement of a client if I don't have to go to him?
True.
Even though we've had to do Zoom and WhatsApp for most of my clients who are out of Nigeria, I take their measurements by, phone calls just like this, but then eventually my staff and myself have to get to the studio and do all of the clothes creation. There's no how I could, so some businesses may not really the market women, I don't see them finding a way around bringing ugu or tomatoes to your home by some form. It's doable, but I mean, you may probably want to start paying more for that, But I mean, it's the world. The COVID-19 just introduced us to the concept of working from home or working, by proxy, which is a welcome and a good idea for me. It's very, very okay. But then, hey, it's not all our business that can be one that we all have to work from home. So if your
Yeah.
business still means you have to go out there and get your daily urgent 2K, please go out there and get your urgent 2K with the whole of yourself. And we pray that God keeps blessing all of our endeavors.
All right, I want to ask, what are the advantage when you compare the private and government companies? Which one has an advantage? Is it, it's of course yours is private as an entrepreneur, you own your own business, and then compared to the government, which is more?
Being a government worker tend to want to make someone a bit docile
Oh, wow.
and and very and very and very very I don't want to use the word unproductive because a lot of times most of them have to just sit and wait for the end of the month to get their wages, and by middle of the following month the wages are over, and then they have to live on credits or stuff until the next salary comes. But then when you work as a private person, it gives you the ability to constantly think on your feet. It gives you the ability to constantly think of creative ideas and ways to see that your business is growing and progressive, how to get new forms of clients, how to, because the competitions are quite high when you in private sector, and you really want to stay above the competition at all times because the clients remains your driving force, and they have options everywhere. So you constantly want to do something that would put you in their minds regularly, you see, so that you can stay in the business. But if I was to work in the government office, it's easy for me to just sit and wait for my salaries at the end of the day. So I don't know. I think we would be looking at this from an angle of perspective based on what the person wants. Some people may choose to want to be a government worker so that they have what we call job security, where they know that the salary is constant and is steady throughout the year.
Yes.
But in the case of private industry, you could be laid off at any time because it's a one-man show. So I think both has got its advantage and both has got its disadvantages. So it just depends on, where the coin flips to you, and I think you just make the best use of it. So if you're a government worker, while we're also waiting for your salaries at the end of the month, I think you can venture into other things that the Federal Civil Service would permit, like agriculture. And I think that's why a lot of them have ventured into things like poultry and animal husbandry and a lot of other stuff. So
Yes.
and that is all you need to still keep body and soul together. And if you look again, salaries have not increased since May 29th. Many parastatals, many government, in fact, the government is talking about increasing salaries by April of 2024. So, and fuel hike have been in this country since the 29th of May this year.
Yes.
Last 7 months, we've experienced the untold of the worst of the hardest of hardships, buying fuel at exorbitant. In fact, at a point, 700
30 to
naira, I bought the
650.
liter in this town. I tell you. So, and we are hearing that that is not even the least. That is still going to go a bit higher, and salaries have not increased in any way, and you're still spending this
Yes.
much on fuel, and so it's a whole lot. So I'd advise government workers, if there's a thing they can do to improve on their finances, on their income, then I think they can do that as long as it's allowed and it's acceptable in the Federal Civil Service Act.
All right, Dayo, I know you've mentioned fuel as one of the biggest challenges. You've mentioned fuel, and we're going to get to that because I really need to know one or two or three greatest challenges when it comes to business owners who are entrepreneurs. But for someone who is listening and saying to his or herself, okay, I think I can do this, I think I can become an entrepreneur, how easy is it to get startup loans? How, as in, someone that doesn't even have an income, how is it when it comes to going to the bank to just to get a startup loan? How easy is it?
The truth is that I'm not even sure banks wants to give anybody startup loans anymore. And that's because even the banks want to see you do something before they give you something. Because everybody is now being careful. Everybody's now being careful. So I don't remember taking a loan for any of my business that I've started, but I can tell you I've taken loans to drive my business on, and I've been able to repay back all of my loans. So getting loans to start a business from the bank may be a bit hard. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but to the best of my knowledge, recently this has been very, very hard. But if you have something already ongoing, because they have to come and access your premises, they have to see all kind of machines you have and equipment, they have to know the value of everything you have. They have to see your CAC registration. They have to see that this business is legitimate. They have to know you, they
Yes.
know your house, go through your bank statement, see your inflow, outflow of cash, and they'll be sure that you can really, really repay back this monies. But if you don't have anything, what basis do you want to give them? I mean, you also have to have a solid collateral which they want to hold on to in
Oh,
case you begin
wow.
to default on repayment. So it's a whole lot for startups to get startup funds right now. But one thing I know is with a very good proposal, there are international donors who are giving startup loans, fundings for as grants, basically for projects, and it has to be a project tailored to their areas of interest. So what I would usually tell people who want to start is like, go online, search for most of these international donors, see what they are ready to fund, and see if it's in line with what you're passionate to do. Now, draw your business plan around what they do, as long as it's within your passion, and submit. Just keep applying to several donors. One day, you will surely get the light at the end of the tunnel.
I like the fact where you said one day for that common man who is listening, that you will see the light of day. All right, Mr. Dario, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here with you,
All right. And now
Jemai.
I want to ask, what is the greatest challenge when it comes to business owners? I know you mentioned fuel, which is really true because it really affects the cost of transportation, the distribution aspect when you have to make your products and you have to do the distribution of supply and all of that. That could be a great challenge, especially with with the economy right now, with the hike in fuel. There's no subsidy when it comes to fuel. So what is one or two or three challenges facing business owners?
Apart from fuel, we have the security challenges,
Uh-huh.
the epileptic power supply, which of course is the other angle to the fuel. Then one of the challenges I've faced recently have been getting the right staff because in my fashion house now we create really top-notch. So I've had to constantly get workers and train them to my standard. And the moment you train them to your standard, they want to believe that they're already solid and good enough on their own, and they want to go set up and so that has constantly been a challenge for me to get workers, train them to your standard, and the next thing they're away, they leave, and then you have to start from floor zero again, get new sets of workers, get to start training them again and again. Another challenge is the fact that you have to constantly be on top of your game to retain your clients, um, basically, and yep. Basically, those are a few of some of the challenges we've had to, because the demands are high, and once demands are high, you need to really get workers, you need to really get hands to help push production. And once you can get good hands to push production, because I wouldn't take any just anyhow kind of person, and simply because you have a brand name to protect. So these are a few of the challenges which I've faced. Yeah, yeah, on a general sense or a general basis. Yeah.
The aspect where you said getting good hands when it comes to, you mentioned your lounge, for instance. You had a place, and then because of the COVID-19, you were out of business for 7 months. And I'm sure you had great hands. Now, the hands in which you have that are helping out with the fashion house and the poultry and all of that, how have you been able to hold them, to still retain them? Because it's not easy. Like you said, minimum wage has not increased. I'm sure the salaries are still the same. Have it increased in any way? And some people offer more. Have you been able to hold solidly to your good hands that you have when it comes to running an entrepreneurship business?
So one of the things I've noticed and that has worked for me is to give them incentives to do what we call rewards and on deliveries,
Oh,
basically.
great.
So I've been able to structure it in such a way that your output is measurable. We can see really what you've done over the course of the month, over the course of the week. And one thing I want to quickly do is to reward you, to make you feel appreciated, and because it makes them feel like a part of the system. They understand that this is home, to give them a sense of home, a sense of we're doing this together. I can't do it all by myself. I mean, I have about 9 machines at my fashion house. I can sit on only one machine at a time, and productions must go on. So when you give everybody the sense of we're together, let's do this as
All
one.
right, Mr.
And when
Mr.
you
Dyer,
do,
let's quickly go on a break. Let's go on a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk more on the issue on ground. Okay, and it is Inside Today on Global Television. Don't go anywhere. Inside Today will be back.
hello.
You are welcome back to the program Inside Today. And if you're just joining in and you're wondering what is going on, well, you've missed a lot because we're talking about entrepreneurship and the challenges of business owners. And I am joined by Ambassador Daya Akimbunuade. He's here. And of course, he is a coach. Yes, he is. He's a peace ambassador and an entrepreneur and also a youth empowerment coach. He owns a laundry, fashion house, poultry farm, and a lounge. And he is here with me and he's giving insight on the challenges of business owners. Hi, Mr. Dyer, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello,
All right,
Jemai.
Mr. Dyer, you spoke about the jackpot syndrome, and that is what is in vogue now. So many people want to leave because they feel they have better and more opportunities abroad. And looking at it, and because of the issues on ground, many businesses have actually folded up. No one can boast of the income. And you mentioned something, and you said, at this time, it is hard to own just one business, to be an entrepreneur to one business. You have several. Now, to someone out there who is listening to you and saying to his or herself, how can I stay afloat? How possible can I continue this sort of business? The business is crashing. It's not working. What do you advise? Because you've had years of experience. What do you advise to that individual who's watching us right now and saying, okay, right now my business is not as it was before, and it's really crashing down. It is really diving down. So what do you advise?
Okay, so the first thing I think the person needs to do is to reevaluate. And
Okay.
when you begin to know your business is diving down, is you just realize that you are constantly in need of monies to stay afloat. Now, what that means is, like I said, a marker, a pointer to let you know that your business is beginning to dive down. You are constantly in need of money to keep your business afloat. Now, it means that the money from the business is not sufficient enough to sustain the business in itself. So you're constantly looking for monies from elsewhere. You get this money today, you put it back into the business. In the next 2 3 months, you're looking for money again. So you may want to start to reevaluate and see that, okay, could I scale down a little bit? Could I reduce production and be able to count my costs? So that if you're producing lesser, you know, maybe it won't put you on pressure, so much of pressure looking for raw materials and resources to produce at that volume you're looking for. And we a lot of times always want to put ourselves under unnecessary pressures and heartaches when businesses have down moments. It's just part of economic trends. I mean, there are times when economic trends goes to the peak, and immediately after the peaks, it starts to nosedive again. And then later on, it will peak again. So you may want to reconsider or recalibrate and, you know, work within that means of your productivity or your capacity, should I use that word, so that you don't get into debts. Because at a time like this, many people are running into debts untold. Because they keep on feeling that the only way they can survive is to keep borrowing monies, and then they keep borrowing monies, and at a point they can't even pay their monies again. And then they now run into the biggest of problems. About a month ago, a very young, vibrant, lively young man took his own life in the city of Abuja because he couldn't repay back all the loans he had taken to put back into his business. So it's terrible. So at a time like this, people are quick to want to think that that's the only way out, to go borrowing, to go getting loans. And even loans, you don't know that there are hidden agreements. There are some hidden agendas they would have put in those agreements, but because you're so desperate to want the money, you don't even read through, you sign it, and then all of your profits goes back to the people who are giving you the loan. Then you come back to square one because you are now being slave driven, looking for monies just to keep paying back loans and not to keep your business running. And at that point, the business will crash to the ground.
All right, Mr. Dio, I'm grateful you said it's all about the phase of business. There's sometimes when it goes down and it comes back up again. You just have to keep staying
Yes.
afloat. All
Yes.
right, Mr.
So while
Dio,
you,
I am so grateful to have you in on the program Insight today. And yes, thank you for throwing more light on the challenges of entrepreneurs. And don't forget, Mr. Dio Akimbunuade is a peace ambassador, speaker for both local and international conferences. Like I say, he's an entrepreneur and also a youth empowerment coach. He owns a laundry, fashion house, poultry farm, and a lounge. Thank you so much for being on Insight today. I am so grateful to have you, Mr.
so much,
Dio.
Megan,
You have
having
a
me,
lovely day. Thank you.
and you
Thank
too.
you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Okay, I have to wrap it up on the program Insight today. Hope you've learned a lot when it comes to being an entrepreneur and the challenges that comes with business owners. It's not as easy as people make it seem. Yes, tough times don't last, but tough people do. Yes, that's the slogan. Of course, these are things that are bound to happen, but in all, everything is going to be fine and everything's going to be all right. Like Mr. Dyer said, just keep that positive mindset and all will be fine. Thank you so much for being a part of Insight today. I am Jumai Manson. Don't go anywhere and keep watching Global Television.